Okay, I want to go back to the words that we got started somewhat, a few moments ago, a few hours ago, it seems at this age. Anyway, going back to the singular nouns, I have two new words on the board here. One is the word na'ar, and the other one is the word perach. The two words are also singular nouns, and this brings us to another dimension of a singular noun. If there are laryngeal letters involved, then it's very possible that the sego that normally characterizes a singular noun will be affected by it. Notice the word na'ar. You have the nun letter followed by the patach, and then you have an ayin letter followed by the patach. My point now is that the words probably should have been, or the word probably could have been, possibly could have been, using all three possibilities with that phrase, sego, sego. In other words, the word would have been ne'er if the ayin wasn't present. That ayin letter causes the sego before and the sego after to convert to an ah sound, and so we have the word na'ar, not the word ne'er. As far as the plural of that word na'ar goes, it's a singular noun and therefore will follow the rule like yelad. Yelad is yiladim, and the word for na'ar would be ne'arim. Notice how I'm spelling it, ne'arim, ne'arim. It's not na'arim, which is what you would expect when you see the word na'ar, just add the chirkid mem. It is a singular plural, the shvat, the kamatz, the chirkid mem. Same thing is true if your last letter of the word is a laryngeal letter. It's very possible that the sego as a last syllable will be changed to a patach, as in the word perach. The word perach is the Hebrew word for flower, perach. And so you have the plural of that word perachim, perachim. And I guess to reiterate, the reason why we're doing this is that the normal formation of a plural where you add the chirik yud mem to the last letter in a masculine plural word is not going to be that exact when it comes to a singular noun. You also have changing of the vowels and the second and the last vowel of the word. That's what we had to add, and so I added it for you. Now, there are other things I want to raise about words. According to Edna Coffin, looking at her textbook, she has a whole description of Hebrew pronunciation and Hebrew identification. And so I'm looking at her book here on page number, get my glasses on page number 12, she has three different words. And those words I'm going to put on the board and explain what she's doing with those words. She has the word kibbutz. That word kibbutz is a common word entered into English as well. Just notice how I'm spelling it, kibbutz. Kibbutz is the Hebrew word for a commune, Commune. Kibbutz is a collective area. Kibbutz is a collective farm. Kibbutz is identified with socialism. And kibbutzim would be the plural. You have the word kibbutz. First, let's break it into syllables. You have C, V, the kuf letter. The chirik is a short vowel, and that explains why that dot and that bet there is a dagesh chazak. When you see the six beged kefa letters, they can either take a dagesh kal or a dagesh chazak. Again, if they begin a word, the dot in that letter is a light dot, dagesh kal. If in the middle of the word, as in the case of kibbutz, if it follows a consonant or following a shvanach, dagesh kal, following a vowel, any vowel, including a half vowel or small or short vowel, it would be the other type of dot, namely a dagesh chazak. So I have CVC, and then the second syllable is CVC, and here you have the accent, and here you have an irregular syllable, long vowel short in a closed situation is irregular, then use the accent. So far, we're going over material we've done. The plural of that word kibbutz, again, the word looks masculine, it is masculine. You add a chirik yud mem, and that's the plural, kibbutzim. Now, what's the point made by Edna Coffin? What Edna Coffin does is to show us two spellings of that word kibbutz. She doesn't bother to go into syllabication. That's Garber's method. She's bothered in telling us how Hebrew in modern Hebrew is expressed. When you write Hebrew with vowels, you do what I did on the board. When you write Hebrew without vowels, notice what I'm doing. I'm putting a yud after the letter kuf. That yud is meant to create the sound of the e. It's not a long chirik. This is not a long chirik. If this were a long chirik, then the word would be kivutz. Then the bet letter would be following a vowel, and therefore cannot be plosive. It certainly cannot be a dagesh chazak, because there's no need to close a long vowel. A long vowel should be part of an open syllable. This is just a device to read Hebrew without vowels, and so we spell it with a yud, whereas the yud is not necessary when you write with vowels. She gives another word on that page, the word ma'od. Ma'od means very, as in tov ma'od, very good. Writing the word ma'od without vowels, we write it with an aleph we write it with a vav following the aleph. I guess the point here is to create the O sound of vav letters put in, and that gives you the O sound to it. And now the next issue is how this is called in Hebrew. Hebrew is called by two different writings. One is Ketiv Chaser, and the other is Ketiv Malay. I'm following what she's suggesting. The word Ketiv, it's written. The word Ketiv, written. Ketiv Malay is complete writing. Let's write it so you're able to see better. Ketiv Malay. And then if it's incomplete writing, it's called Ketiv Chaser. What is unusual is that Ketiv Malay is the Hebrew written without the vowels. And Hebrew written with vowels, like the word kibbutz over here, is called Ketiv Chaser. You would think it's just the opposite. You would think that Ketiv Malay is the full spelling of the word where you write Hebrew with vowels. But no, as far as the terminology goes in today's Hebrew, the Ketiv Chaser is the Hebrew that's written with the vowels, and the Ketiv Malay, the full writing, is the Hebrew written with the additional vowel letters put in, such as the Vav in the case of Ma'od, such as the Yud in the case of Kibbutz. Just keep that in mind, the full and the wanting, the missing writing. The Ketiv Chaser, again, is writing Hebrew with vowels. Ketiv Malay is writing Hebrew without the vowels and putting in those letters to create the vowel sound. Okay, with that said, I think we've covered more or less some of the basics of Hebrew terminology. And what I'd like to do now is we're going to look at some Hebrew words. And as I read the words to you, if we see some problems, we're going to call them to your attention. This is what Edna Coffin does.
What page are you on? And
I'm going to go into that in a second. What we did was basically summarize the paragraph she has on page 12 of distinguishing the terminology Ketiv Malay and Ketiv Chaser. And again, for repetition purposes, the Ketiv Malay, the full writing, is Hebrew without vowels, and the wanting, the missing writing, is the Hebrew that's vocalized. Anyway, Edna Coffin, basically, when she finishes with all these descriptions, she then goes into a number of pages of reading Hebrew, and that's found on page 14 or thereabouts. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at some of these words and write them on the board for us. I'm looking at page 16. And on page 16, you'll notice that she has drill number 1, and she has also different letters that basically are going to be emphasized, and the words that are selected reflect those letters. What I'm going to do is take a few of these words and basically emphasize the points we made. I'm looking at the word solution. It's on the left side of the page, 16, second line down, the word pitaron in Hebrew, and you'll notice there are two spellings. There's a spelling without the vowels, and there's a spelling with the vowels. When you study Hebrew, you don't study without the vowels. You study with the vowels. Or to use the terminology that we just studied in the last couple of moments, you study the Ketiv Chaser, the missing Hebrew, or the missing writing, which is a term we give with Hebrew written with vowels. So I'm writing the word pitaron on the board, and let's write both forms on the board and go over this again. The word pitaron. And when you first study Hebrew, you need to have assistance. You've got to see the vowels to help you read better. You cannot read that word without the vowels. And when you write without vowels, you'll notice that Edna Coffin puts the letter Yud after the letter Pei. How would you know how to read this? That letter Pei is one of the 6 Bega Kefa letters. And if I read without markings, I might read this as a Fei letter. That's why the markings with those dots in them help me to read the word better. A Bega Kefa letter beginning a word is plosive. This is called a plosive dot, Dagesh Kal. As I begin to analyze the word, I have a constant pay, a short vowel. I say to myself, the vowel chirik is short. A short vowel should be part of a closed syllable, and that explains why there's a dot in that tav letter. That dot is not a bega kefet dagesh kal. It's a bega kefet dagesh chazak, a strong dot to close the short vowel that precedes it. See how it works? CVC is a closed syllable. It's now making this vowel regular. Short vowel should be part of a closed syllable. The second syllable has a kamatz to it. Again, that dagesh doubles that letter. So the second tav has the vowel kamatz, and then you stop. Is the kamatz short? A short kamatz should be part of a closed syllable. Is it closed? The resh does not have a dagesh in it. And again, don't forget this. I know I've said it before. I'll say it again. I'll say it again. I'll say it again. Repetition is how you're going to study. 5 letters cannot be doubled. You're not going to see dots in any one of these 5 letters. And now the exception. The letter resh does have a dot in it, but it's found only in the Tanakh. There may be several places where the resh letter actually is dotted.
Those would be the laryngeal letters?
Excuse me?
Those are the laryngeal letters?
Laryngeal letters. The resh is not laryngeal, it's one of the liquid letters. But the fact that there's a dagesh in the resh in the Tanakh, how did that come about? I don't know. It is there in printed Hebrew Bibles. Is it an error? Possibly. It's just the rule of thumb is 5 letters don't get a don't get doubled by a dagesh chazak. One of them is the letter resh, and the others are the 4 laryngeals. And then when you got Bega Kefa letters, you have a double problem. Is it dagesh kal or dagesh chazak? And what about the kamatz? The kamatz is either short kamatz. If it's a short kamatz, it should be part of a closed syllable, unaccented. If it's open syllable, then the chances are it is a medial kamatz. And if it's a medial kamatz, it's either accented or one place removed from the accent. I now look at syllable number 3. Syllable number 3 is CVC, the resh, the long cholam, closed by the final nun. And again, if there are letters of Hebrew where in the final position they look differently. The nun in the frontal medial position looks like this, as a final letter looks like this. And sure enough, that's what I see. I have a CVC here with the proper spelling of the final nun. I have a kamatz, one place removed from the accent. The accent has to be the last syllable. Long vowel closed is irregular, is accented. And the kamatz is one place removed from it. That's your syllabication part. And now to go into the Ketiv Malay, the so-called writing without vowels. Notice that I write it this way. I add a yud. Adding that yud is meant to create the E sound underneath the pay. That's all that yud is representing. But if you don't know Hebrew, Ketiv Malay and Chaser properly, then it's very possible when it comes to vocalizing the unvocalized Hebrew, you'll write something like this. You'll leave it as a long chirik, which is not true. This is not a long vowel. This is a short chirik, closed by dagesh chazak in the next letter. But Edna is accountable to modern Hebrew, so she shows both spellings, but she rightly shows the vocalization, which is how we need to study our Hebrew. Then there's the word for stain in Hebrew, the word ketim. Notice that Edna Coffin has this tradition. If the word is not the last syllable accented, she has a tendency, which I presume is an Israeli style, to write an accent mark or an indication that the accent is not the last syllable, but in this case, second to last syllable. So if I were to write the word ketem, just the way it is, I double look at that word, I double this, I double that. I say to myself, isn't there an error? Look at how I spell the word. I begin with a kaf letter. Make a careful at the beginning of the word, gets like kal. Have a short vowel there. The short vowel should be part of a closed syllable. Do you see I don't have a dot in that tav? So something is wrong here. I have a short vowel, should not be closed. I double check the word as I now see it in Mrs. Coffin's book. I look and I look and I look and I look, and sure enough, the tav doesn't have a negation in it. And as a result, that sego is part of an open syllable. Short vowels, open syllable is irregular, and so the accent is over that sego. Second syllable is CVC, with a tav letter without a dagesh kal, and a tav letter was expected without the dagesh chazak. Is that clear? You have two Beggar Kefir letters. One is properly pointed with Dagesh Kal. The other is not properly pointed with Dagesh Chazak. As a result, an irregular syllable for the first one. Then let your mind think a little bit. Ketzim looks like the word Yeled. It's a singular noun. And theoretically, the plural would be Kitamim, like Yeled Giladim. I'm choosing words that have different, associations with them that will help us read. I then look at the word towards the last third of the page, 1, 2, 3, 4, the fourth line from the bottom, the word that translates as class, and the word that follows it that translates as surely, and what's going on here. All right, the word kita. Again, when you see the words written without vowels, you're not going to see dots anywhere. It's up to you to be able to enclose the dots. And you see that word kita? I want you to look at the unvocalized Hebrew. The unvocalized Hebrew spells the word kita with a yud after the kaf letter. The vocalized Hebrew does not have a yud after the kaf letter. And again, we've seen this with the word pitaron. This is the proper spelling for the word class. A kaf letter, a chirik, a dagesh in the tav that follows. Again, you got two Beggar Kefir letters. The first one has a dagesh kal, has a short vowel under it. The short vowel is closed by a dot in the next letter, and that dot has to be dagesh chazak. It's not a dagesh kal, even though the letter is one of the 6 letters that can take a dagesh kal. Dagesh kal follows a consonant, not a vowel. Dagesh kal begins the word. But when it follows a vowel, be very careful. It could well be a dagesh chazak, which it has to be. Then your second syllable is CV, and then if you hear what I've been saying multiple times, a last letter hey is in brackets. It's a vowel marker. It's not a true consonant. The word kita. And now we write in what's called the full writing, the Ketib Malay. I don't write like this. I put another letter in, the yud. That's not a consonant. That's not a vowel. It's a way to help us read the vowel underneath that first letter as an E sound. That's all it represents. And if you start vocalizing the word, you got to drop that yud. It's not there. the next word that we have. Again, as you get exposed again and again, it becomes more and more evident. The word following kita is the word betach. Betach, which means of course or surely. Betach. Notice how I pronounce that word. Betach. Betach. Not betach. And again, know the Hebrew grammar rules. If ever in doubt, you sound the last syllable. But there are many times when the second to last syllable gets emphasized. Here I have a CV for my first syllable. Here I have a sego, short vowel, open syllable, needs to be closed. There's no dagesh, there's no shranach underneath the tet. I conclude the first syllable is open. I notice it's irregular, short vowel, open syllable is not normal, and therefore we'll get the accents. The second syllable is regular. The short vowel is closed by the last letter het. And betach has the sound of perach, looks like a segulate noun, and segulate nouns with laryngeal letters will have the sego before that laryngeal letter, normally changed to a patach. Yeah, betach is a segulate noun. And for that word betach, you get words like bitachon. Bitachon means security. That's another point I've been emphasizing. We're not just learning how to read Hebrew, recognize Hebrew letters. We're learning roots of words, and words that come from that same root are related. Bitachon is security. And I guess the word surely means you're secure. Baruch, your question? Bitachon. Now watch what I'm about to do. I wrote that word the way I did. I think something's missing. Dagesh. Or maybe the word bitachon has a long chirik to it. Do you understand why? I have a bet with a chirik. I did not write any dot there. So what do I do with a short vowel open syllable? Notice what I just did. Notice my hesitation. And now let me consult the book. It'll be very interesting to see whether the word bitachon is found with a long chirik after the bet, or as I'm proposing, a dagesh chazak in the tet. Just bear with me. The average Israeli would never do what I'm doing. It's not important. But when you're studying and when you teach, you try to be as possible as possible. Yep. Dagesh. Okay, let's go on with other concepts. There's a word here, tiyul. Let's look at that word tiyul for a second. And then delik. Okay. The word tiyul. Again, when you say the words, you're not going to really emphasize the doubling of letters. If you're able to do that, then you'll remember how to spell properly. The word tiyul. Notice the tet letter has a chirik under it, and then the yud has a dagesh in that yud. The doubling of the yud is to make sure that the chirik before, the short chirik, is part of a closed syllable, CVC. And then the doubling of the yud, the second yud starts the next syllable, CVC, long vowel, close situation, needs to be accented. Tiyul. Tiyul is the Hebrew word for a trip.
Tiyul,
Tiyul.
not tiul.
Well, if you say latiyul, that means going to a trip.
But the correct pronunciation of this would be
You're adding a lot. The word is tiyul. Tiyul. If you want to emphasize it properly, latiyul means four. This is an additional word. to the or for the trip, latiyul. Get ready for the trip, latiyul. The word is tiyul, tiyul. You hear people say tiyul, that's emphasizing the first syllable. It's the second syllable that needs to be emphasized. How much more so when it's a long vowel, closed situation, irregular, demands the accents. You take a hike, you take a trip, they're all called tiyul. The plural is tiyulim. A very popular Israeli pastime, a tiyul. Tiyulim would be the plural. When are the tiyulim done? When there are major Jewish holidays in Israel. You have more than one day off. You don't just take a tiyul for Shabbat. You have a couple of days for the holiday of Pesach, whatever, you take a tiyul. Israelis do that. If they're secular, they certainly do that. It's a way to get away from the everyday hazard of 6 days of work and whatever. All right, the next word, delic. These are common words. Tiyul is a good word to use in English. I'm taking a tiyul today. Or after class, I need to go to the gas station to get delic. Get used to using these words in your English conversation. Delic. Notice how I'm saying that word, delic. Delic. Notice where the accent is over that first syllable. The segol is short vowel, not closed by dagesh hazak. CV is the first syllable, must be accented. Second syllable has a segol, and that's fine. It's closed. That's regular. And delic looks like a secular noun. See, anytime you see something that looks something familiar to you, go over that in your own mind. That's the way you'll get it more pronounced and more remembered. I'm still looking at our first page of words, and there's maybe one other word that can be used right now, which we haven't seen the combination yet, and that is the word pitka. I'm looking at the word pitka, the word that translates as note, N-O-T-E, a note, not noting something, but a note, a handwritten, inscription. The word is pitka. And again, it should all be repetition by now, at least the words I'm selecting. First thing you do is make sure you have the right spelling. And then you begin to analyze. The pay letter has a dot. That dot is not always the dagesh chazak. If it's a beginning letter for a big capital letter, then the dagesh is dagesh kal. Then you have a short chirik. A short chirik should be part of a closed syllable. Closing of a syllable is a dot in the next letter or a shva under the next letter. That's what I see here, the shva. That's sufficient. CVC. And then the last syllable is CV, and the last letter hey is a vowel marker. Pitka. Okay, that takes care of that page there. Selecting words for the next page, where she plays with the letters, the tzadi letters. Words like tziltzul, siratzar. All right, let's pick up on some of these words right here. Okay, the word tziltzul. 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 You begin with the tzadi letter, short chirik, shvanach anitalamed, first syllable. Second syllable, CVC, long vowel close, irregular is accented. What makes Tiltsu unusual is that you have a doubling of two letters, the tzadi and the lamed, the tzadi and the lamed. It's also a good example of how words, I guess, come into a language and how the name of the word is announced. Tsil is meant to give the impression of ringing. We're doubling the sound, zing, zing, ring, ring. And possibly for that reason, the Hebrew word to ring has a doubling of two letters. The sound is that of a tzadi and a lamed combined and repeated again and again. The next word, Tzion. Tzion, the Hebrew word translates as Zion. Tzion. As I look at that word, that tzadi letter has a chirik. The chirik is followed by the yud. Do not assume it's a long chirik. That yud has a dot in it, which implies that the yud is being doubled, and the so-called chirik underneath that tzadi is a short chirik. It's not the long chirik. If this were a long chirik, then there would not be a dot in that yud. So it's CVC, the first syllable, and the doubling of the yud gives the second syllable, CVC, with the accent on the last syllable. That word Tzion translates as Zion. The word itself, the root of that word is Tzadi Yud Nun. And again, when we write the roots, we don't bother to write the final letter for the letters that have a final position differently. We write it as a regular letter if you're writing the word as a root letter. Anyway, Tzadi Yud Nun in Hebrew is the word that implies to make a mark, to make a mark. And Zion is, I guess, understood God's mark on earth. So it's interpreted. And then there's another issue. The word Zion, when you transliterate it into English, there's a tendency of transliterating it as T-Z-I-O-N. The Tzadi letter transliterated in popular transliteration should be T-S, not T-Z. But it's rare to find Zion transliterated as T-S-I-O-N. I'm just being very academic.
That's the correct way.
The correct way is TS. But people just are impressed with that TZ, so they'll write it as TZ. Or they'll just write ZION.
Same for Sadiq, it wouldn't be Zadik, it would be
Sadi is not a Sadi is not a
like a righteous
is a
person,
TS. It's a TS. It's not a TZ sound. The Sadi.
Where'd that come from? The majority of people I hear say the TZ.
If they say T, well then even TZ. No, it's not TZ. The Z is a Zion sound. Zzz. It's TS. Trust me. In fact, when we showed you the academic way of showing transliteration, I put the tzadi as an S with a dot under it. And what does Mrs. Coffin do? She has her own way of doing the tzadi. She doesn't have an S with a dot under it. She has the tzadi letter on page number 2 there. See how she transliterates it? She has the letter Z. She's totally unusual. This is her marker for the letter sign for the tzadi. The letter C. This is her marker for the tzadi. Nobody uses the letter C, except I guess the circle that she belongs to. Anyway, don't want to spend too much time on that. Just to call out to your attention, however. All right, we still have more time. Let me go on with more words for the tzadi letter. The word kayetz is a word for summer. We'll look at that word in a second. There is one word here, and that is the word. Well, let's take a look at the word for cricket. Tsiratsar. Tsiratsar. Okay. It was found on page 17, and we have the vocalization Tsiratsar. Here is where Edna Coffin can be challenged, not by me, but by other Israeli speakers. The word she has vocalized is Tsiratsar. To make sure I have the right spelling from based on the book itself, I go back and I go back and I go back and I double check, and that's what I see. If the word is vocalized this way, is there a problem as far as syllabication goes? I don't think so. The Sadi letter has a shvana under it. When a shvana occurs, you write the letter ayin. The letter ayin stands for na. When a shvanach occurs, a silent shva, we don't bother to make any marker. But this is a shva under the first letter, a shva under the first letter most of the time, if not all the time, it's always a shvana. So Ciyin, and then I go on with the next combination, CV. You do not have a syllable in Hebrew only of Ciyin. And so I have my CV now. I pause for a moment. I say, is this a regular syllable? It looks like one. I have a kamatz here. The kamatz is either accented or one place removed from the accent. And that's what I see here. I have a short vowel closed syllable. I have the accent over the last syllable. So what's the big problem? The word siratzar, how did it get its name? I guess that's how it sounds in Hebrew when a cricket begins to scream and says, leave me alone. And then I have Israelis who attend my class. And more than once I've been told, Professor Garber, the word in Hebrew for cricket is not siratzar. What? What is it? Tsar, tsar. Tsar, tsar.
Was that mispronunciation? Hebronic?
It's a different pronunciation. They have the same spelling, but I'm told, again, I take reservation. I am not the Israeli speaker. If I hear Tzirat Tsar, it doesn't make any impression on me. But I'm told the word is Tsar Tsar. Tsar Tsar. I guess spelled this way, or maybe spelled this way with a kamatz. It's spelled the same consonants. Don't you get it now, everybody? Hebrew is written with the same spelling without vowels. It's how you pronounce that word. And so what I do is look at the dictionary. You would think that the final source is your printed textbook. But then you have speakers who are the living source of how the language is spoken, and they say, no, that's not how we say that word. It could well be how they don't say it. And that's one of the issues of the language.
Local conventions, that's what you're saying.
1 second now. I see the word siratsur, which is a word for screeching. Siratsur has the same spelling as the word for crickets, Sadi Resh, Sadi Resh. It might not even have the word. Let me just double check. Well, first of all, look at the wrong page here. What's wrong with me? Sorry about that. I thought I saw that word. I might have imagined something in my own mind. Okay, just bear with me. Okay, we're getting close to it. Oh, yeah. Okay, this has to be this page here. Siratsar. Siratsar. Does she have that word siratsar? Let's double check. Where did I see that word again?
Yeah, it's on the top of page 17.
Siratsar, yeah.
Right hand side, second line
Yes,
down.
okay. Okay. Siratsar is what Coffin has. Siratsar is what the dictionary has as well.
Oh, she has it right this time.
No, there's a good thing that we're doing it this way. I have a note in my textbook. Israelis pronounce it tsar tsar. Let me double check and double check and double check.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Tsar tsar.
Like Mato Zemer, that's like Mato Mash.
No, well, it has two words. One is tsar tsur, or tsirat tsar. No, tsirat tsar and tsar tsur, not tsar tsar. Okay, tsirat tsar. All right, stay with that word. Stay with tsirat tsar. And let's assume there is a pronunciation of tsar tsar, and the question is, does the spoken Hebrew now take over the accepted, given Hebrew? And if it does, then the Academy of Hebrew Language should have the responsibility of changing it officially. Let me make this point. Language will have changes. I don't question that. But when does it become official? There's got to be a council that sits and makes that decision. We certainly don't depend on different groups on how they pronounce their Hebrew. And I guess the other point I can make, which everybody will agree with, where does a word get its sound from, get its phonemes from? I guess with a cricket is how the cricket sounds, the sound that it makes. Okay, let's go on. I'm looking at another word here. The word for iron, I-R-O-N, makates, is an iron, but it doesn't mean iron in the sense of a metal. It's an iron in the sense of the ironing, tool when you iron clothes. All right, there's a word matslema. Matslema is a good word. It's a word that characterizes activities of every day. The word translates as a camera. And you'll see what I'm going to get at in a second. The word matslema. Our first task is to syllabicate the word. CVC is the first syllable. You all see that? The mem is a patak. The patak is a short vowel, closed syllable, and sure enough, it's closed here by a shvanach. The shva in the tzadi letter is a silent shva. Notice I do not put a marker where the shvanach is called for. I don't put the letter chet here, standing for the word nach, as I have the ayin standing for the word na. I then continue with the next word, next syllable. The lamed has a tsere under it. A tsere is a medial vowel. Medial vowels are either accented, or most of the time they are. Medial cholam always is. Medial tsere most of the time, not all the time. But Edna, if this word were accented on the tsere, we'd make a little marker above it. She does not. We say maslema. We don't go maslema. Anyway, the second syllable, tsere, open syllable, nothing irregular about it. And then the last syllable is a CV. Again, the routine, the last letter hey is a vowel marker. What makes the word matslema interesting are two things we already have done, at least one thing we've done. The word ends with a kamatse. Nouns ending with kamatse are signs of a feminine noun. I want to use an adjective by that word camera, a nice camera. It's maslema yafa, not yafeh, which is the masculine word for nice. And then the root of that word. Again, the root, if you have more than 3 letters, assume that the last letter is not part of the root and the first letters are not part of the root. The root is in the middle. Sadi Lamed Mem is the root of that word maslema. And Sadi Lamed Mem has given us the word tzelem. And tselem is a Hebrew word for image. Man is made b'tselem, in the image of Hashem. Ain't that interesting? The function of a camera is to capture a picture. The picture is the image of what you're looking at. It's related. Do you see that in English? No. That's the beauty of Hebrew. A root can give you multiple words, and if you think a little bit about it, you can see a connection. And why the mem letter? The mem letter as a prefix letter to a noun represents the concept of ma, what, or the concept of me, who. So if you look at matslema, it's like saying, what is a camera? Its purpose is to capture the image of the object it's filming. Another good word to show that is the word mafteach. Mafteach is a Hebrew word for key. Mafteach. Let's just get that word down. Again, the mem letter. Mafteach. The mem letter, the root of that word is pei tavchet, the Hebrew word to open. What exactly does a key do? A key is an instrument that opens something. And then that another mem is a question, what opens? Ma poteach, what opens? A key, K-E-Y. And then to bring it into syllable application, CVC is the first syllable. Again, notice the fe is not with a negation. If it were, then that would be a stronger dot. Rapatach is followed by the shvanach. And this letter tav is following a constant, following a constant, following a constant. As you can see here, CVC is following the constant C, which is the fe. And then it has under it a tziri. And then what do you do with the last combination? It's CVC. If you see a patach underneath the last letter, ayin, chet, or hey, that patach is called the stolen patach. Patach anuv, the stolen patach. It's pronounced before the last letter. Mafteach, not maftecha. Every word now has multiple associations. Okay, let's just go on with the page before we say shalom. I'm looking at drill number 7.
So number 7 on page.
This is, I'm sorry, drill number 3 on page 17. All right, so I want to get words that stand out. All right, let's get 2 words here. Oh, there's several words. The word Khalil. Khalil, this is found, again, drill number 3. The first line of drill number 3. You have the word kul, career, but you also have the word flute, Khalil. A Khalil, back in my youthful days, was Israel's signature of identity. In the 1940s, after Israel was founded in 1948, but before Israel was founded, the picture that characterized Israel was a young boy wearing a sailor's hat inside out, I guess, in shorts, and singing or playing a flute. I guess flutes were available. It was common, and it's called a Khalil. Again, CV is the first syllable, second syllable is CVC. Playing the Khalil. It's a good word to know. It's part of Israel history. I see another word, the word Lahatchil. L'chatchil. Again, I make sure my spelling is what is written in the book, and I begin to break down the syllables. The lamed has a shvana under it, and that's what you do to show the shvana. You put the letter ayin. The hay has a patach, short vowel. It should be part of a closed syllable, and sure enough, the next letter tav has a shva under it. I assume there's a shvana. CI and CVC. And the last syllable is CVC. Long vowel, closed, irregular, is accented. The Hebrew word to begin, lahatchil. I continue. I see the word achim. The last line has that word achim. I look very carefully at that word. I make sure I see the correct spelling. The word achim has something that's unusual. The aleph has a patach under it. The chet follows the chiruk mem. And how do I break the syllables? The first syllable is CV. When I say to myself, that's a short vowel, open syllable, it's not going to work. The letter chet cannot take a dagesh chazak. The letter chet does not have a shanach under it. The second syllable is CVC. So do I say to myself, if you have a short vowel, open syllable, should it not get the accent? And if I put the accent on the first syllable, then what do I do with the second syllable, which definitely needs the accent because because of this syllable, I see a long vowel close. That's definitely irregular. It definitely needs to be accented. So maybe I misspelled the word. Maybe achim should be a miya kamatzir. No, I double checked the spelling. It's a patach. And how do you get out of it? You don't. We give you the following theory. It is very possible when you have a short vowel followed by a laryngeal letter, in this case the chet. The chet cannot take a dagesh chazak. If this were another letter, it would. So we have a theory that short vowels followed by a laryngeal letter in the next letter, in this case the chet, looks open, but it's potentially closed. It's called potentially closed, skura bakoch. The Hebrew word skura. Skura means closed, feminine singular. Skura bakoch. Closed by the power of saying that chet. Here again is a stolen patach phenomenon. Achim, achim, not achim, achim, in which the actual native speaker takes the patach and gobbles it into the chet. Achim, achim. That's how it's argued. The patach looks irregular, but it's potentially closed by how you say that word. And again, the rule of thumb, a patach or any other short vowel followed by a consonant that's laryngeal, with no dagesh chazak and no shvanach, no accent over that syllable. That's how we explain it. It's closed potentially. And this is one of the words, you have many words of Hebrew that have this example, or a number of words, and you'll be seeing them from time to time. Okay, I now go on to the next page, page 18. Look at that first word there. Well, since you don't have a textbook, the word sorech, the word for need, sorech. And I guess the point is you have the accent over the first syllable. Why so? Again, the word sorech. The meter cholam, when occurs in the word, draws the accents. Always. That's why. It's not a question of irregular or regular syllable.
Page 18 on top.
That's right. Page 18 on top. From that root, Sadi Resh, well, first let's give it CV, the second syllable CVC. And notice where I write the final half with a shra alongside the bar. She translates the word sorach. Let's just get a translation. As need. And the phrase that you'll hear Israelis say, I need, the word means I. Sarich. I need. Sorach is more, the word need is a noun, I guess. And this is more of a verbal expression. I need something. Same spelling. Tzadi, Jeresh, the final half. This is masculine. If it were feminine, it would be tzricha. And Chamatzei tells you the gender.
I think with that we'll conclude.
Is that enough?
Well, I want to go ahead and do the video.
Okay, okay.